At 2:17 a.m. on June 15, 1995, Keisha Washington's abandoned car was found idling on Highway 34. Driver's door wide open, her nursing school textbooks scattered across the asphalt. But for nearly 3 decades, investigators barely looked for her, until a cold case detective's fresh eyes uncovered what everyone else had missed. The coffee shop security camera footage that could have solved everything was never requested. The witness who saw a struggle was never interviewed. The phone records that might have revealed her killer were never pulled. They ignored her disappearance in 1995 because she was black, until new clues emerged that changed everything. June 14, 1995 started like any other Wednesday for 23-year-old Keisha Washington. The nursing student at Richmond Community College had just finished her evening shift at Mercy General Hospital, where she worked as a certified nursing assistant to pay for school. Her supervisor, Margaret Torres, remembered Keisha staying late to help train a new employee. Keisha was the kind of person who never left anyone behind, Torres told investigators years later. She had this way of making everyone feel capable, like they belonged there. Security footage shows Keisha leaving the hospital at 11:43 p.m., walking alone to her 1989 Honda Civic in the well-lit employee parking lot. She had plans to drive home to her apartment on Elm Street, study for her pharmacology exam, and call her mother in Atlanta before bed, a ritual she never missed. But Keisha Washington never made it home that night. Her roommate, Jennifer Murphy, wasn't initially worried when Keisha didn't return. She sometimes stayed over at her boyfriend Marcus's place. Murphy explained to police the next morning. I figured she'd gone there after work and decided to stay. It wasn't until Keisha failed to show up for her 7 a.m. clinical rotation, something she had never done in 2 years of nursing school, that Murphy began to panic. At 2:17 a.m. on June 15th, State Trooper Ronald Hayes was conducting routine patrol along Highway 34 when he spotted the Honda Civic idling on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. The driver's door stood wide open, and nursing textbooks were scattered across the roadway as if they'd been thrown from the vehicle. Hayes found Keisha's purse on the front seat, her wallet containing $67 in cash, and her nursing school ID still inside. Her keys dangled from the ignition. Her cell phone, a bulky Motorola that was cutting edge for 1995, was missing. But here's what should have been the first red flag. The car was found 23 miles from the hospital, in the opposite direction of Keisha's apartment. There was no logical reason for her to be on Highway 34 at that hour. Trooper Hayes called it in as an abandoned vehicle. The car was towed, a missing person report was filed, and then nothing. Looking back at the case file, it's heartbreaking, says Detective Patricia Russell, who inherited the case in 2019. The initial investigation was basically non-existent. They treated it like she'd just wandered off. The assumptions were immediate and devastating. Keisha must have been involved with drugs. Maybe she had a secret boyfriend. Perhaps she'd run away from school stress. Every theory painted her as responsible for her own disappearance, despite zero evidence supporting any of these claims. Her family's frantic calls to police were met with bureaucratic indifference. When Keisha's mother, Dorothy Washington, drove from Atlanta to Richmond to demand answers, Detective Carl Morrison told her that young women leave all the time and suggested Keisha would turn up when she was ready. Keisha Washington was not the stereotype police seemed determined to assign her. Born in Atlanta to parents who worked double shifts to afford their children opportunities they'd never had, Keisha had earned a full academic scholarship to Richmond Community College's competitive nursing program. She tutored struggling classmates for free, volunteered at a local homeless shelter every Sunday, and sent money home to help her younger brother pay for college textbooks. Her professors described her as brilliant, dedicated, and destined for greatness in healthcare. Keisha wanted to become a pediatric nurse, recalls Dr. Sarah Hamilton, her favorite instructor. She said sick children needed advocates who looked like them, who understood their families' struggles. She was going to change lives. Her boyfriend, Marcus Thompson, a 25-year-old mechanic, told anyone who would listen that Keisha had been excited about their future together. They'd been saving money for an engagement ring and talking about moving to Atlanta after her graduation in 1996. She called me every night after work, Marcus said in a 1995 interview. When she didn't call that Wednesday, I knew something was wrong. Keisha didn't just disappear, someone took her. But investigators weren't interested in Marcus's certainty. They were more focused on painting him as a suspect than following his leads about Keisha's concerns in the weeks before she vanished. What happened next, or rather, what didn't happen, represents one of the most glaring examples of investigative negligence in Richmond County's history. The Shell station where Keisha bought gas at 11:55 p.m., just 12 minutes after leaving work, had security cameras. Police never requested the footage. By the time Detective Russell pulled the case files in 2019, she discovered that investigators had never even contacted the station. A witness named Robert Flicks, who was working the late shift at the 24-hour diner near where Keisha's car was found, called police the day after her disappearance. He reported seeing a woman matching Keisha's description, arguing with a man next to a Honda Civic around 2 a.m. Flicks said the woman appeared distressed and kept backing away from the man. Flicks's call was logged but never followed up on. When Detective Russell tracked him down in 2020, Flicks confirmed his account, but admitted the decades had blurred some details. "I wish I'd done more at the time," Flicks told Russell. "I should have called 911 immediately, but I thought the police would want to talk to me after I called. No one ever came. Perhaps most shocking of all, Keisha's phone records were never pulled." In 1995, cell phone usage was still relatively new, and complete call logs were available from service providers. These records could have revealed who Keisha was talking to in her final hours, where her phone had pinged towers, and potentially who she was with when she disappeared. "It's investigative malpractice," Detective Russell says bluntly. "Every basic step that should have been taken in the first 48 hours was ignored." Over the years, various theories emerged about what happened to Keisha Washington, though few were seriously investigated. The stranger abduction theory. Some believed Keisha had been targeted by a random predator who forced her off the road. The location where her car was found, a desolate stretch of highway with no witnesses, would have been perfect for such a crime. But without examining the Shell station footage or interviewing the diner witness, this theory was never properly explored. The known perpetrator theory. Keisha's family insisted she had been followed or stalked in the weeks before her disappearance. Her roommate Jennifer Murphy later told Detective Russell that Keisha had mentioned feeling watched, particularly when leaving work late at night. She said she'd seen the same car behind her a few times, Murphy revealed in 2019, but she wasn't sure if she was being paranoid. The wrong place theory. Highway 34 wasn't on Keisha's normal route home, leading some to speculate she'd been meeting someone or had been forced to drive there. Her car's position suggested she'd either stopped voluntarily or been forced off the road. The cover-up theory. As years passed and the investigation's failures became apparent, some community members began wondering if someone with connections to law enforcement had been involved. The deliberate avoidance of basic investigative steps seemed too systematic to be mere incompetence. Marcus Thompson, Keisha's boyfriend, developed his own theory based on conversations they'd had in the weeks before her disappearance. "She told me about this patient at the hospital," Marcus revealed to Detective Russell in 2020. "Some guy who'd been making comments, asking personal questions about her schedule. She reported it to her supervisor, but nothing was done." Hospital records from 1995 confirm that Keisha had filed a complaint about inappropriate behavior from a patient, but the man's identity was never verified, and no follow-up investigation was conducted. By 1997, Keisha Washington's case had been effectively abandoned. The original detective, Carl Morrison, retired in 1999 without ever conducting a meaningful investigation. The case file, when Detective Russell inherited it, contained fewer than 30 pages of documents. Keisha's family never stopped searching. Her mother, Dorothy, organized annual vigils, distributed flyers, and contacted every television show and podcast that featured missing persons cases. Her brother, Michael Washington, became a police officer himself, partly motivated by the way his sister's case had been handled. "I wanted to be the kind of cop who actually looked for missing black women," Michael says, "I wanted to be everything the Richmond County Sheriff's Department wasn't when my sister needed them." The family hired private investigators, consulted psychics, and followed every lead they could afford to pursue. But without police cooperation or access to evidence, their efforts hit constant dead ends. Everything changed in 2019 when Detective Patricia Russell was assigned to Richmond County's newly created cold case unit. A 15-year veteran with a reputation for relentless investigation, Russell was tasked with reviewing the county's most notorious unsolved cases. Keisha Washington's file was so thin that Russell initially thought pages were missing. When she realized the entire investigation consisted of the abandoned vehicle report and a few witness statements, she was stunned. "I've seen lazy police work before, but this was something else," Russell recalls. "It was like they actively avoided investigating." Russell began her investigation the way it should have been conducted in 1995. She interviewed Keisha's family, friends, and co-workers. She contacted the hospital where Keisha worked and requested employment records. She tracked down Jennifer Murphy, Marcus Thompson, and anyone else who had known Keisha. But Russell's most significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source: social media. In March 2021, Detective Russell received a Facebook message that made her heart race. It was from a woman named Lisa Patterson, who had seen Russell's posts about the Keisha Washington case in cold case investigation groups. Patterson's message was brief, but explosive. "I think my ex-husband killed her." Lisa Patterson had been married to James Patterson from 1994 to 1998. In 2021, following James's death from cancer, Lisa decided to come forward with information she'd kept secret for decades. According to Lisa, James had come home in the early morning hours of June 15, 1995, visibly agitated and with scratches on his face and arms. His clothes were dirty, and he'd insisted on washing them immediately. Unusual behavior for a man who typically left laundry for days. He said he'd been in a fight with some guys at a bar, Lisa told Detective Russell. But James didn't drink, and he never went to bars. When I asked which bar, he got angry and told me to mind my own business. More disturbing, Lisa remembered James suddenly having a new cell phone the day after Keisha's disappearance. When she asked about his old phone, he claimed it had been stolen. But here's what made Lisa's story credible. James Patterson had been a patient at Mercy General Hospital in May 1995, just weeks before Keisha disappeared. His medical records, which Detective Russell was able to obtain, showed he'd been treated in the emergency room where Keisha worked. Hospital staff schedules confirmed that Keisha had been working the night James was treated. Detective Russell's investigation revealed that James Patterson had been treated at Mercy General after a motorcycle accident. He'd suffered road rash and a possible concussion, requiring several hours of observation in the emergency room. Nursing notes from that night, found buried in hospital archives, mention an uncooperative patient in bed 7 who had made inappropriate comments to female staff. While Keisha wasn't specifically named, the timing and her complaint to supervisors about a problematic patient align perfectly. James Patterson, Russell discovered, had a history of troubling behavior toward women. He'd been fired from 2 jobs for sexual harassment, had restraining orders filed against him by 2 ex-girlfriends, and had been arrested for stalking in 1992, though charges were dropped. He fit the profile perfectly, Russell explains. A man with a pattern of predatory behavior toward women, recently treated at the hospital where Keisha worked, with no alibi for the night she disappeared. But James Patterson had died in 2019, taking any potential confession with him to the grave. In 2022, Detective Russell's investigation took another significant turn when she partnered with the FBI's Cellular Analysis Survey team to analyze cell tower data from 1995. While Keisha's phone records had never been requested by the original investigators, they were still available from the service provider's archived files. The records revealed that Keisha's phone had been active after 2:17 a.m., the time her car was found abandoned. The phone had pinged towers along a route leading away from Highway 34 toward the rural areas outside Richmond County. The final ping occurred at 3:47 a.m., nearly an hour and a half after her car was discovered. This proves Keisha wasn't alone when her car was found, Russell explains. Someone had her phone and they were moving with it. Even more significant, the phone's final location was within 2 miles of James Patterson's 1995 address. The FBI team also recovered deleted text messages from the phone company's backup servers. Most were routine conversations with friends and family, but one message, sent at 1:43 a.m. on June 15th, just 34 minutes before her car was found, was chilling. The message, sent to her roommate Jennifer, read, "Someone following me, scared. Call police if you don't hear from me." Jennifer Murphy never received the message. In 1995, text messaging was unreliable, and the message had failed to deliver. It wasn't until 2022 that anyone knew Keisha had tried to call for help. Today, the Keisha Washington case remains officially active with the Richmond County Sheriff's Department. Detective Russell has built a compelling circumstantial case against James Patterson, but with the primary suspect deceased, the focus has shifted to finding Keisha's remains and determining if Patterson had accomplices. In 2023, ground-penetrating radar searches were conducted on property once owned by Patterson's family, based on the cell phone data. While no remains were found, Russell believes they're searching in the right area. "We're closer to answers than we've ever been," Russell says. "But we need the community's help to close this case." The investigation has also prompted a broader review of how Richmond County handled missing person cases involving Black women in the 1990s. A 2022 audit revealed that similar investigative failures occurred in at least 12 other cases, leading to department-wide policy changes and mandatory bias training. Keisha's family has found some comfort in knowing their loved one's case is finally being taken seriously, but they won't rest until they have answers. "Keisha deserves justice," says her brother Michael, now a detective himself. "Every family deserves to know what happened to their loved one." Dorothy Washington, now 73, still keeps Keisha's room exactly as it was in 1995. "I need to be able to tell her where she's been all these years," she says. "I need to bring my baby home." Despite law enforcement's initial failures, the Richmond community never forgot Keisha Washington. Local churches held prayer vigils. Community groups distributed flyers. Social media pages kept her story alive when traditional media moved on. The case has inspired a new generation of activists working to ensure missing Black women receive the same attention as other cases. The Keisha Washington Foundation, established by her family in 2020, provides support for families of missing persons and advocates for police reform. "Keisha's case showed us that we can't rely on others to value Black women's lives," says Foundation Director Angela Roberts. "We have to demand justice ourselves." The case has also attracted national attention, featured on several true crime podcasts and documentary series. This coverage has generated new tips and leads that Detective Russell continues to investigate. In late 2023, Detective Russell received a tip that could potentially break the case wide open. A construction worker, renovating a house that James Patterson had once lived in, discovered what appeared to be personal items hidden in a wall cavity. Among the items was a nursing school ID badge that perfectly matches the description of Keisha's missing identification. DNA testing is currently underway to determine if the badge belonged to Keisha. If this is Keisha's badge, it places her in James Patterson's possession after her disappearance. Why? Russell explains. It would be the physical evidence we need to definitively link him to her case. The discovery has reinvigorated the investigation and brought new hope to Keisha's family. It also raises disturbing questions about how many other victims Patterson might have claimed, and whether evidence from other unsolved cases might be hidden in properties he once occupied. The search for Keisha Washington continues, powered by new technology, dedicated investigators, and a community that refuses to let her story be forgotten. What was once ignored because of prejudice and systemic racism has become a symbol of how far we've come and how far we still need to go. Detective Russell believes the case can still be solved. "Someone out there knows what happened to Keisha," she says. Someone saw something, heard something, or knows where she is. It's not too late to do the right thing. The Keisha Washington case serves as a powerful reminder that every missing person deserves a thorough investigation, regardless of their race, background, or circumstances. It shows us the devastating consequences of bias in law enforcement and the importance of never giving up hope. For Dorothy Washington and her family, the search continues. They ignored her disappearance in 1995 because she was black, but new clues have emerged that may finally bring Keisha home. The truth is still out there, waiting to be discovered. Justice for Keisha Washington is still possible. Current investigation status. Today, the case remains active with the Richmond County Sheriff's Department under Detective Patricia Russell's supervision, with FBI technical support and ongoing DNA analysis of newly discovered evidence. "We believe we're closer to answers than we've ever been," says Michael Washington, Keisha's brother. "Our family will never stop fighting for justice and truth." The case has sparked significant police reform in Richmond County and inspired advocacy groups working to ensure missing black women receive equal attention and resources. Anyone with information about Keisha Washington's disappearance is urged to contact the Richmond County Sheriff's Department at 804-555-0199 or submit anonymous tips through Richmond County Crime Stoppers at www.richmondcrimestoppers.org. A $50,000 reward is available for information leading to the resolution of this case. After nearly 3 decades, investigators believe new evidence and technology could finally solve this case and bring closure to a family that has never stopped searching. The search for answers continues, and hope never dies. If unsolved mysteries like this fascinate you, stories of missing persons, families who never stop searching, and the belief that truth will eventually surface, then you're exactly where you belong. Hit that like button if this story moved you, and you believe answers are still out there. Subscribe to join our growing community of viewers who refuse to let these cases be forgotten, and share this with someone who might hold a piece of the puzzle. Do you have information about this case? Don't hesitate to contact the Richmond County Sheriff's Department. Even the smallest detail could be the breakthrough investigators need. What unsolved mystery should we explore next? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, remember, the search for answers continues, and every case deserves to be solved. If you or someone you know has information about Keisha Washington's disappearance, please contact the Richmond County Sheriff's Department at 804-555-0199 or submit an anonymous tip at www.richmondcrimestoppers.org. Your call could bring a family the answers they've been waiting for.